Welcome to the Parenting Power Podcast, supporting parents with the real-life tools they need to raise the confident, interdependent people the world needs. Gail Bell and Julie Friedman-Smith interview experts who share their knowledge to assist parents in creating a home environment where kids can thrive.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Real Life Parenting Podcast. This is Julie Friedman-Smith.
And I'm Gail Bell.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Beaner's Fun Cuts for Kids. Parenting is hard. Haircuts shouldn't be. Visit beanersfuncuts.com for a location near you. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Renee Jain, the founder of GoZen. Renee works to build the emotional intelligence of kids, including resilience, empathy, kindness, and critical thinking. Renee is also a mom of two. We're very glad to have you here today, Renee.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Julie and Gail.
Renee, we loved your post, The ABCs of Making Mistakes with a Growth Mindset. First, can you explain to our listeners what a growth mindset is?
Yes, it's interesting. I came into the world thinking that my intellect and what I was good at, that those are the cards I was dealt, and that's it. I always compared myself to my brother. So he seemed to be smarter than me, more talented than I was in pretty much everything. And I just thought, well, this is my lot in life. So what I'm describing is a fixed mindset, which is the opposite of a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is the belief that you are born with a particular amount of talent, a particular amount of intellect, and no amount of effort is really going to change that. And a growth mindset is the belief that the effort that you make, the hard work that you put in can change your circumstance, right? Because it can change your brain, it can change your intellect, it can change your level of talent. And so growth mindset is really giving you the efficacy in your own life to make change and growth.
Wonderful. So mistakes are all a part of that. When you know that you can grow, it's okay to make mistakes, right?
Yeah, it's definitely part of the process. I think we come into the world understanding that this is part of the process. I have yet to see a kid or meet a kid who falls down when they're learning to walk and says, you know what, I'm not going to try that again. That was a mistake, right? They keep getting back up.
Yep.
So we come into the world really with this growth mindset. I mean, I think that there have been research studies done on how much of this is a predisposition, how much of it is learned. But I feel like we come in with a very strong growth mindset. We come in risk takers, we come in explorers, we come in adventurers, and that is unlearned, right? That we learn that, oh, maybe someone's better than us at something. And so I'm never going to get there. But if we were left on our own to our own devices, a little bit of a Lord of the Flies situation, I guess, we would be more resilient. We would come into the world again with a growth mindset. So we don't stop when we fail. That is just failing, and falling is just part of the growth process. Yeah, so making mistakes is okay. It can make your brain grow, right? There are different kinds of mistakes. I feel like when research studies are put out there, so a lot of the research on growth mindset and the pioneer of growth mindset is Carol Dweck, and she talks a lot about the myths of growth mindset. But I feel like when research is put out there, we get very reductionist. So we're like, mistakes are good. All mistakes are good and make our brain grow. We like to be very black and white and simple because it's just easy to ingest the information. I do think that there are certain mistakes that may be better than other mistakes, but for the most part, what we do want to teach our kids is that it's absolutely part of the process.
That's so true. And the more we share this information, the more people will learn, including parents, because parents often put a lot of pressure on themselves and sometimes their children to make the right team or get the highest marks. And it's a little bit of prevailing culture, but the more that we can all talk about it, where mistakes are normal, but we can't use them as excuses either. Best effort is what we're all striving for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really hard for kids because I think there are definitely some systemic issues going on where we're telling them, look, mistakes are good, they grow your brain, you just have to make an effort. But on the other hand, we're putting them in systems where their scores are very relevant to where they believe they need to end up. So it's like on one hand, we're like, yeah, make mistakes. It's part of the process. It's good. On the other hand, your grades are important. These scores are important. The things that you do are important. Getting these medals are important because we want you to be happy, right? In order to be happy, you have to get to a good school. And in order to get to a good school, you have to get these marks. So I think that the kids are getting mixed messages for sure. I think we're trying to tell them, like, you're telling me mistakes are good, but how can I make all these mistakes when in school, it's like they're really stressing the importance of grades and not just doing your best, but what marks do you get at the end of the day? So I think it's really important to have deeper conversations with our kids about the mixed messages that they get. I don't think it's as simple as saying, listen, kids, mistakes are good. All we care about is you making effort, because I think they're seeing a different set of messages from different institutions.
Yeah. So again, just that clear, consistent communication to connect with your kids.
Yeah, I think that to see their struggle, because we might, again, at home be telling them, we want you to make mistakes. It grows your brain. But then they're feeling pressure, on the other hand, to do really well, right? And what does doing really well mean to them? I think those are the kind of conversations that we need to have with our kids, because I don't think it's going to be enough to take the research from what has been done when it comes to mindset and to just tell our kids the research outcomes, which I think is what happens. The research outcome is that mistakes grow your brain, but I don't think that that's what's helping our kids. I know that might sound controversial. I think that's a starting point, essentially, is what I'm saying.
And so it's a little bit about wrapping our own parenting heads around that, in the sense that we need to realize that as much as growth mindset is valuable and where we start out and a great way of believing in ourselves, not every person is going to get the best marks in everything and go to the best schools or even go to university or higher level education. So we need to be really realistic, not pessimistic, but realistic about where our kids are and what growth mindset looks for them, as opposed to getting that top mark.
And getting very clear with ourselves with what messages are we sending to our kids about what quote unquote success is for them, right? And are we really aligned with our top line messaging to them of where we want them to be, where we see them going? Is that top line message in alignment with this research that we're telling them, like, yes, it's good, we just want you to make your best effort? Is that really true? Is that what we're communicating to them? Because I think
with our words and our
actions.
We are. Yeah, with our words and our actions, right? We need to make sure that our actions are meeting those words, if that's indeed what we're going for.
Yes, we need to look inside ourselves and ask ourselves, is that really true for myself? Is that what I really feel? Would I be okay if my child didn't end up doing X, Y, and Z, right? And why or why not? So I think the place to start is within ourselves, because our kids are extremely sophisticated, extremely intuitive, and you can't say one thing and then say another thing, essentially, because they sense it, right? They feel it.
For sure.
And I think that's the conflict that they experience right now, and why you see such high levels of anxiety.
That is so true. And it's not the one conversation. This is the ongoing conversation with yourself and your children, because there's different ages and stages.
Absolutely. Yes, this is an ongoing conversation, right? Because I think where the real disconnect is, and this is just for all humans, is where you are, right? And this is just about growth mindset, whether that be where you are when you start playing basketball or where you are in your career, and where you think you should be, right? Well, I should be better at basketball. I should be in a different position at work. I should be. And whether that should is inspiring you to work harder and make effort, or whether that should is depressing you and bringing you down and making you feel like you're never going to get there and making you feel like you're kind of losing your way, right? That is the conversation about mindset that I think needs to happen with kids.
Wow, that's a powerful word. That one word, should, is a hugely powerful word that resonates in all of our brains. I'm going to steer the conversation in a slightly different direction. We talk a lot about perseverance and resiliency. And can you, Renee, help our listeners to understand how important it is for our kids to develop these skills for their real life learning?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important, right? The ability to fall down and get back up, the ability to keep going, right? To overcome obstacles and keep going, the ability to have that kind of burning desire within you. I think, again, I've come to this just over time, being a parent myself and the work that I'm doing, is that kids rarely come into the world without those superpowers of resilience and perseverance. They will try to tie their shoes and try again and try again and try again and try again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Every human wants to master their skills, right? There is a rare child that's like, I never want to learn how to go to the bathroom on the toilet. Like, I always want to wear a diaper. Like, no, they want to learn. Everybody wants to learn and master these skills. We're resilient and we're perseverant when we come into the world. And I think it's just a matter of tapping into those superpowers. I think it's extremely important for the world in terms of if we want to have kids that are innovative, if we want to have kids that are risk takers. And there's probably been a lot of talk about helicopter parenting and about, I think they call it snowplow parenting now, where you're mowing down all of the obstacles in front of your kids. And that is certainly something that goes on. And an influence that we can have on our kids is really to give them space to fail, to endure the stress of failing, and to pick themselves back up, while finding the balance of how can we support them? What support am I supposed to give them as they're going through that process is really the work that we have to do. But are we giving them enough space to kind of go through that process? Or are we freaking out when they fail, right? Because we're thinking the worst. We have this catastrophic thinking, oh my goodness, they're failing in this, and then they're not going to succeed, and then they're not going to go to a good school and get a good job and get married, and it's always like it ends in homelessness, prison, or drugs, right? In our mind,
Yes.
like those are like three
Yeah.
outcomes for our kids.
Yeah.
So are we giving them the space and trusting the process with them to allow them to really tolerate the distress of failing in order to develop those skills of resilience? Because resilience is a skill, right? And there's a lot of mindset work in that. But again, you have to be allowed to navigate that process without having someone stand over you. We have to find the right balance of support for our kids.
And it's tricky for a parent because we do want the best for our child. And again, with social media, we're hearing so much more than maybe we used to of what we, here's that word again, should be doing. So having these conversations and reminding all us parents that it's normal to feel this way. And as you said, go inside and maybe start, even maybe on paper, start putting down some of your fears and wishes and then talk about them.
Yes, I think that that's an excellent suggestion. To really do some self-reflection, and writing is a tremendous way to process what you're experiencing yourself.
That's so interesting what you were saying, Renee, and I love this idea that we have this resilience and we do keep trying. But there are times, I know from parenting my own kids and talking with lots of our clients at Parenting Power, that a child does say, I'm never doing this again. I was talking to a parent yesterday that if he falls off his bike, I'm never going biking again. And that is the moment, right? That is one of those moments where our next action as a parent, whatever we do, is going to have an effect. So if we immediately are reacting to that and giving tons of attention to it and, oh, no, you don't. So either saying, oh, but yes, you can, you're going to be a great bike rider, blah, blah, or saying, you never have to ride a bike again. Either way, if we're really jumping in, we can often encourage the fixed mindset. And so as parents, we really need to be aware that in those moments when our kids are not showing resilience or not showing perseverance, rather than panicking and worrying, as you said, about their entire future, we can really hear them in the moment. Wow, sounds really frustrating. It's okay to have these feelings. And then help them, as you said, find the way to support them in taking baby steps to just keep going in a way that makes sense. Does that resonate for you, or do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, one of the hats that we wear as parents is to be a detective.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you described essentially is a behavior, right? And I'm sure many of you who are listening have heard of iceberg theories, where you only kind of see the tip of what's going on when you see a behavior. So if the behavior is falling off a bike and not ever wanting to get on the bike again, or not being able to solve a math problem and never want to doing math again, whatever the behavior is, put on your detective hat and ask yourself, what's below the surface, right?
Yes, yes,
Am I
yes.
willing as a parent to dive into that chilly water and figure out what the belief system is underneath that is driving that behavior? Because in the moment, a lot of times we will get asked the questions about in the moment behavior and what do I do in the moment? Well, there's lots of things that you can do in the moment that will not be damaging, essentially, right? Do no harm is probably what you want to do in the moment. Yeah. And a lot of what, Julie, what you just said about empathizing and validating to connect with your kid and not invalidating, essentially. Sometimes if you don't know what to do, just a is like good enough, right?
Yep, yep.
But really then later being able to dive into what is the mindset behind that behavior, right? And do you see it as a recurring theme, or were they just having a bad day? Right? Is this something that is a trend, or is it just kind of like a one-time thing? And if it is a trend, well, what are the beliefs that are driving it, and how do I affect those beliefs? And it's not done in the moment, right? It's done in the moment just to connect and say, listen, I'm here, I see you, I see you're frustrated, I'm not going to invalidate how you're feeling. But the work to change the mindset, which then thereafter changes the behavior, that's done at a different time.
For sure.
And that's different types of work.
Yep.
Yes, Julie and I often remind ourselves and other parents that we work with that not much learning happens in the moment. So thank you for reminding all of us of that. Renee, we like to ask our guests to share a real-life parenting tool that they've used in their own families. Now, you've given us lots today, which we totally appreciate. But do you have one more to share with us?
This might sound a little trite or even cheesy, but I firmly believe that we are suffering societally as, really just like a global community from not enoughness, from feeling like we're not enough consistently and constantly. And I feel like that energy is communicated to our kids. They feel it empathically, they hear it. And so my tip, if I'm to offer one tip to parents, is to embody the mantra that I am enough, to sit with that and say it to yourself and embrace it and let it soak into your body, because you are. You came into this world enough, right? And you are enough. And trust me, for your kids, you are enough. And that's the belief system that needs to change with most parents, I feel like, that I have been working with, and most people that I'm encountering. And so my tip is to sit with yourself, say it 8 times every night before you go to bed. I love that number 8. 8 times in the morning. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. You are enough. You are doing the best with the tools you have and the information that you have.
Wow. That's very, very powerful. And there are 2 themes that come to me from our discussion today. One is that we've used the word connection a multitude of times, and obviously we're all working with families. We know that in our society that's not necessarily happening in the same way that it used to be, and it's something that's desperately required. So that's critical. And then the other theme that's come up here is that we talk about parenting like it's all about the kids, but really we need to check in with ourselves first. And we've talked about that a few times in this conversation. And this I am enough. We don't need to tell our kids, you're enough, you're enough, you're enough. We need to tell ourselves and live that. And if we want to say it to our kids, great. And one of the best ways to really help our kids to learn something is for us to model it rather than just saying it. So I love this idea that the tool to use is one for ourselves as parents as opposed to something to use with our kids. It's very, very valuable.
Yes. Thank you.
Renee, we are just so delighted that you could be with us today and share your ideas and share your way of thinking. If our listeners would like to continue to follow you, what's the best place for them to do that?
I'd love to see any of you guys at GoZen.com. That is the best way. So we try to just create a lot of content to reach all different ages with some of these ideas. And we're a continual work in progress. We're always producing some kind of creative content. So yeah, GoZen.com.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. It's been wonderful.
Thank you both. It was my honor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Real Life Parenting Podcast. If you're looking for more real life parenting tools, then please sign up for our weekly Thoughtful Thursday email newsletter. It's free and it's really good. Just visit our website, parentingpower.ca, to subscribe. While you're there, check out our book, A Year of Intentional Parenting. Like this podcast, the book was created to help you feel confident, capable, and calm. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to connecting with you again right here every Monday.